It's time for a new episode of Faith N Fairways with the founder, Brad Thorberg, who after more than 16,000 lessons taught to over 2,000 golfers, has discovered the most forgotten and overlooked part of your golf game that is keeping you from playing your most consistent and confident golf ever. Now, here is your host, Brad Thorberg.
What is up, the birdie crew, my fellow golfers? I like to call you the birdie crew. I hope you're all out making birdies the past few weeks. What we want to get into today is we want to know, what is the secret better golfers know that you don't? I know you've played with golfers, some where you look at their swing and you're like, man, that swing does not look good. But how are they scoring so well? How do they hit the ball more solid than I do, even though I put in all this work on my golf swing, or I feel like my swing is in a better place than theirs? You know, and there's this one thing that better players do that most of you are not doing. You know, an analogy there that I love to share with a lot of my clients is, this is what a better player does versus you. Right now, if you were to go play a game of darts, you throwing a dart at a dartboard would be like standing there thinking, all right, make sure I have 60% of my weight on my front foot. I want my right elbow parallel to the ground. I want to get a good hinge back from the elbow. I want to keep my thumb on the side, my pointer finger just barely on top of the dart, and I want to exhale when I throw the dart. I mean, you're thinking of all of that trying to throw a dart. That's basically how you're trying to swing the golf club. You're standing over that ball, and you're thinking, all right, you know, do this, you know, make sure I take my hands, you know, slow and low, you know, or you know, don't move my hips, keep my head down, make sure I get my weight through, don't peek, you know, relax. You're thinking of all those things. You're thinking, I mean, there's a million thoughts that so many of you run through your brain when you're standing over a golf ball, which is so much harder than throwing a dart. I mean, throwing a dart, you have the dart attached to your fingers and you're releasing it. Here you have a club in between your fingers and the item you're trying to hit, the ball, to a much further target. So you're standing over this golf ball thinking of 3-4 things of what to do, what not to do. And what better players do is they just focus on where they want the ball to go, not how to get it there. And that's the big secret that so many of you struggle with. And you know, kudos to a lot of you who've put in the time and the investment into working on the mechanics of your swing, but you're so inundated with swing thoughts that when you get out on the golf course, you're using them as a crutch, thinking of how to swing and not focusing on where. What world champion dart players do when they're throwing a dart at a dartboard is they're actually trying to look at where a dart has already entered the dartboard. That is how focused they are on where they're trying to go with that dart. They're not thinking of their mechanics. Sure, in the off season or leading up to the tournament, they might be working on their mechanics. They might be working on keeping the elbow a little higher, might be working on their breathing, might be working on their posture with their shoulders. But when they get into game mode, they are laser focused on where a dart has already entered the dartboard. That's how focused their eyes are. They're focusing on where, not how. And so many of us, we read articles, we watch YouTube, we get golf lessons, which is wonderful. You need those things because, you know, I truly believe as your mechanics get better, your misses get better. And golf's a game of mishits. Person with the better mishits wins. And we've talked about that in the past. But when you get on the course, you can't be focusing on those mechanics. And you've ingrained this habit over and over of focusing on how to hit the ball instead of where you're trying to go. You know, that's really a huge leap to take someone who's average, who can shoot a good round and then blow up 15 strokes worse the next, or shoot a good front nine and blow up on the back nine. Or sometimes you blow up on the front nine and you play really good on the back nine. Why is that? Well, that's because you stopped focusing on how because you gave up. You were so focused on how and you were so tense and trying to force something that you couldn't hit the broadside of a bar. And then you're like, well, today is over with. I'm not going to play very well. So then you forget all of those mechanics and you just start to naturally react like an athlete. And that's a saying I have with a lot of my clients, especially those who are former athletes. I'm like, you just need to be an athlete. Be reactionary. You know, if a fastball is coming at your face, you just hold your hand up and you catch it. You don't think, all right, fold my elbow up, open my palm, move my head to the side, squeeze my hands. You don't think of those things. You get your teeth knocked out. I mean, try this. You know, this would be a really good test. I used to do this with kids when I taught junior clinics is we'd do the tie the shoe drill. And I'd say, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to untie your shoe, and we're going to time this. And we'd have them in partners, and we would time this with stopwatches. And I'd say, all right, when I say go, I want you to tell me out loud what you're doing. So I'm making a loop, I'm wrapping, I'm pulling a loop through. I want you to tell me verbatim how you're tying your shoe and what you're trying to do next. And I want you to tell me what the next step is when you're in the process of tying that shoe. And I mean, it'd be amazing. Probably half the kids couldn't even get their shoe tied. They'd tie their fingers together. They'd get frustrated. It'd take them 30 seconds to a minute. And then I'd say, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just be quiet, and I want you to tie your shoe as fast as you can. Don't think about it. Just do what you've been doing for the last 3, 5, 10 years of your life. And boom, they're tying a shoe in like 1 or 2 seconds, guys. And a golf swing only takes 1.2 seconds. I remember, my journey as a golfer. Oh man, I had an ugly, ugly golf swing. I saw my swing for the first time at the Mel Sol Phil Rinston Golf School in Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah, we had to record it with those big old camcorders on VHS. I think the VHS is still sitting somewhere back home. But that was the first time I saw my swing. I was 17 years old. It was between my junior, senior year of high school. And I was already probably about a 4 or 5 handicap. I knew if I didn't go out of bounds, I could score pretty well. But I never really worked on my mechanics. I just worked on hitting golf shots and learning how to hit golf shots with what I had. And by doing that, I hit the middle of the face a lot. I worked a lot on short game. And if I didn't have penalty strokes, I'd usually shoot in the 70s by then. And sometimes break par on a 9. And I was playing pretty consistent golf. But boy, if I got into my own head, it could blow up in a hurry. I remember that same summer I went for the amateur match play qualifier. And I had just shot 73, 74 that previous weekend back home. And then I go into Lincoln to Firethorn Country Club for the amateur qualifier, and I shoot like 91. I just blow up. I think I lost like 6 balls that day. I don't know where I was going. I was trying to think of, all right, for some reason I started to think of swing thoughts, which was so random because I've never really had a lesson on my swing. But after seeing my swing, I saw how ugly it was, and they gave me drills to work on, and I struggled. But they only gave me 2 drills, and I just worked on them and worked on them all summer. I must have got in thousands and thousands of reps to where I stopped thinking about it. I played miserable golf for a few months, but come that next golf season, I played my best golf. I think I won a couple triangulars. I won our own invite. I went on to, I've told this story before where I 7-putted at districts, or else I would have probably finished first or second at districts. Instead, I think I took 6th, and then went on to state. Didn't play so great at state my senior year, but I had to go through almost 6-7 months to change one little thing in my swing with 1 or 2 drills. I stuck with 1 or 2 drills for 6 to 7 months. And so many of you are popping on YouTube and changing up your swing thoughts daily. And you're going out to the golf course and you're just creating this mind bomb when you get out there of how to swing the golf club because you got so much data wrapped around your brain. It's crazy.
Even though Brad has cracked the code to consistently breaking 90, there are still 3 major mistakes he's found from working with over 2,000 clients that will sabotage your round before you get to the first tee. Head to www.mygolfcode.com now to receive your free guide, where he outlines all 3 faults and provides you with some easy action steps to start playing more consistent golf today.
One of my first jobs was when I went to work for Golf Tech out in Colorado, and that's where I really made advances in my golf swing. I finally was able to hit a nice little baby draw. It's now my natural shape, but I struggled with scoring for probably a year because I was a good player because I played with what I had, but all of a sudden here I am trying to force an in to out path. I'm trying to force a release of the hands, and I'm just struggling to make contact, even though the swing on camera looked beautiful. It looked way better than any swing I've ever made leading up to then. And I've been playing golf since the age of 3, all the way till now at 35. And, my swing was hideous. It was an over-the-top power slice, I guess you could call it. But I kept it in play. I knew how to keep the ball in play because I knew if I didn't go out of bounds, I could shoot in the 70s. And I managed the course with what I had. And I wasn't over-mechanical. But once I started to see my swing on video, it made leaps in how my swing looked, but it was a process to get over forcing this swing, forcing thoughts. And even just last weekend, this is how hard it is, guys. You got to work on changing the way you think. Because even last weekend, I was out playing golf and I catch myself thinking, all right, I haven't played in a few weeks. I'm stiff. Got to make sure I turn. So here I'm trying to force my hands low and around my body to get a good turn. And in doing that, I'm sure I had a great turn. I'm sure if I had, the camera on, it looked great and I swung on plane. But guys, I shanked 3 shots OB that day. It was ugly, but I also had some beautiful shots. Almost had a hole-in-one from 220 with a 5-iron. But that was when I wasn't thinking. So when you're thinking of how to do something, sure, you might hit a few good shots, but your bad shots are going to be really bad because you're almost going to miss the club face with probably a better looking swing, but you're tense. If you're thinking of how to throw the dart, if you're thinking of how to tie your shoe, and you're thinking through the steps of that, you're not moving fast and fluid and smooth. You're tense and you're slow and things are out of sequence. And next thing you know, you're tying your finger to your shoe. So you got to start focusing on where you want this ball to go versus how to get it there. And you really got to start focusing on how you practice. So there needs to be a transition there. And that's why, next week you really want to tune in, because that's where we're going to get into why your golf practice is ruining your golf game. We're going to dive right into how to practice, because, if you don't practice properly or create kind of a program for your practice, you're just discombobulated in your head thinking of how to do something versus where to go. And there's no dart champion on the face of the planet who's thinking of how to throw a dart. They're looking at where that dart's been. So start focusing when you get out there. Where do you want this ball to start? Where do you want it to end? Then just remember to swing easy. 80% effort, starts here, ends here, starts here, ends here. You got to train your brain that. One thing that will really help is to get into some visualization practice. I talk about this. This is why you want to definitely go to mygolfcode.com and get my free ebook, because I talk about the mental side and how to visualize kind of shots in the round before you get there. Because if you've already pre-done that, it's so much easier to see it, step up and do it like an athlete, instead of sitting there thinking of how do I swing the golf club versus where do you want it to go. But if you've already pictured where it's going to go or needs to go, it's so much easier to just step up, think start here, end here, and swing 80% effort, and you'll be shocked as to how much more solid you hit the ball. Will your swing look better? No. But your swing is getting better if you're working on it. But that doesn't happen on the golf course. I mean, this stat will blow your mind. I mean, if you think about it, if you went and shot 100 on the golf course, 100, you're really only making maybe 40 to 45 full swings. If you shoot 90, you're making 35 to 40 full swings. If you're shooting in the 80s, you're in the 30 range of how many full aggressive swings you're making over the course of 18 holes. So 18 holes, 4.5, 5 hours. Maybe some of you are playing some nice country clubs where you can zoom around in 4. That's awesome, because 5 hours is just way too long these days. But even then, you think about that, 4 to 5 hours, you're only making 30 to 40 full swings. You could go in your backyard, or you could go into your living room and do a drill, and in 15 minutes get in 50 reps. So the practice on how to do something needs to happen not on the golf course. When you're on the golf course, it needs to be here's where it starts, here's where it ends, 80% effort, hit it there, and play with what you have, not with what you want to have with your swing that day, and know that it's ever evolving, even when you get into a good place. I mean, guys, my career round was years ago, but my swing is always changing for better or worse. That's the golf swing. That's the beast here we have with this game of golf that makes it so fun and addicting is you're always trying to strive to get better, but it doesn't always mean it's in the best place it's ever been. And that's why you work on it. But you can't be out on the course thinking, how do I swing the golf club? Be an athlete. You look at where you want it to start, where you want it to end, and hit it there and play with what you have, not with what you want to have. So right now, if your swing's producing a slice, or in my day, through my teens, when I played decent golf, I called it a power fade, but I played it. I didn't try to hit a draw because I knew if I tried to do that, it's going out of bounds or I missed the golf ball. I played with what I had. I managed the course. If the course was tight and it didn't set up from a power fade / AKA slice, I'd club down, I'd go to a 3-wood, or I'd tee off with an iron, and I just played the course with what I had that kept me on the course, relying on my short game, and that allowed me to play some really good golf with poor mechanics compared to what, we consider good mechanics when you're looking at stuff on YouTube or watching videos. So that is what better players do. They focus on the where versus the how. Be a world-class athlete. Be a world-class dart thrower. Be so laser focused that you see the blade of grass 2 feet in front and you see that branch sticking out on the edge of the tree 350 yards out there, and you're going to start the ball over there, and it's going to curve off of that branch into the right center of the fairway, and start focusing and picturing that versus make sure I turn my shoulders, make sure I keep my head down, shift my weight, don't turn my hips, then turn my hips, and relax my hands, all these goofy things, moving the ball around in my stance. Stop doing that. You got to be consistent with your thought. You got to focus on where you're trying to go, and you'll be amazed as to how much better you hit the ball, more solid, more consistent, and keep it in play. And with a short game, you will start scoring more consistently versus scoring 84, 97, or 89, 101. You got to stop thinking of how. So that is the secret better golfers know. You want to totally stay tuned next week. Tune in. Why your golf practice is ruining your golf game. This is going to be huge. We're going to dive into some different concepts of practice, how to practice, what you're doing so wrong right now that's just creating horrible memories and a mindset when you get on the golf course. We got to change that so you can start playing your best golf, your most consistent golf. So start working on those visualizations. Start focusing on where you want to go. Pick out tiny targets. Stop trying to make beautiful swings on the golf course. Beautiful swings that don't hit the ball well do not end well. Golf's a game of bad shots. Person with the better bad shots wins. To do that, focus on where you're trying to go. So that's a wrap for today. Hopefully that gives you guys some nuggets to take out to the course this weekend. Stay tuned next week. For now, head to mygolfcode.com. You definitely want to check out some visualization and mental cues. And we'll talk to you all next week.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.